did you know heat is the #1 weather-related killer? Every year, 600 people die because of some heat-related illness or heat-related situation. 38 of those deaths are from children left in a car. So let's start with heat safety as it relates to vehicles. Never leave anybody inside of a car, no matter how cool you think it may seem. At 88 degrees inside of a car in just 10 minutes, it's 107, and so on and so forth. And that's because sunlight enters the car through the windows, and like a greenhouse effect, it traps that heat. So do not leave your children, do not leave your pets or the elderly, anyone in a car. Now, what sort of weather criterias issue a heat advisory or heat warnings for us here in Houston? If the air temperature is 103 degrees or hotter, we are under a heat advisory. If it feels like 108 though, say the temperature is 100 degrees outside, but with humidity, it feels like 108, that would put us under a heat advisory as well. How about the next level up, an excessive heat warning? If the air temperature makes it up to 105, that puts us under the warning. If the feels like value gets to 113 degrees or feeling hotter than that, we're under an excessive heat warning. This seems pretty exaggerative. However, last year, we made it up to 109 degrees, the actual air temperature, twice. That is the hottest temperature ever recorded at the big airport. So we've seen this already last summer. We got to prepare for it again this summer. Something easy that you can do as you start thinking of those summer plans and what kind of wardrobe you want to acquire. I'd say light colored clothing is your friend because it reflects 80% of the solar radiation versus a dark colored shirt, for example, that absorbs 80% of it and only emits back 20. That means you heat up a lot faster. You also want to make sure that the clothing is nice and loose so you're able to sweat and your body is able to cool off. If you're wearing tight clothing, your body cannot release heat by way of sweating that much. And remember your 3 S's that are also your friend: sunscreen, the shade, and of course, staying hydrated. We know how hot these summers in Southeast Texas get, so your #1 tip for Severe Weather Awareness Week is heat safety.
So let's talk about what makes a thunderstorm severe. There's really 2 factors that we take a look at. One is wind damage and wind strength. Basically, the threshold for a severe thunderstorm is wind speeds that are going over 58 miles per hour. On top of that, hail is the other factor. Any hail that falls that has a diameter of over 1 inch is considered to be large hail. And then the other obvious factor that goes beyond these 2 is if a storm is producing a tornado. So any tornadic storm obviously considered to be severe. So let's go through each of these and just talk about exactly how they form. With wind, it's a really interesting phenomenon. It's probably the most common aspect that we see with severe storms here in Southeast Texas. So here's your thunderstorm. What happens is in the upper levels, you get dry air that starts to filter its way into the storm. And as that happens, it cools and becomes more dense. And through that process, it starts to fall through the storm. And as it continues to fall, it accelerates before it hits the ground. Then once it hits the ground, it fans out, and that's where that damage can occur. And these wind speeds can get upwards of 100 to 150 miles per hour. And a lot of times, straight line damaging winds can be confused with tornadoes just because of how sudden and how fast they are. But oftentimes, these storms can be more impactful than tornadoes because they cover a larger swath of area. So that's the wind damage component with thunderstorms. Let's talk about hail now. How does hail develop? Hail is actually a directly related to the strength of a thunderstorm, right? So the stronger a thunderstorm is, the larger the hail. And the reason for that is because it has to do with updraft speed. So updrafts are the rising motions within thunderstorms. Well, the stronger the rising motions, the stronger the thunderstorms. Well, also the stronger these updrafts are, the more weight they're able to support. So what happens is these water droplets get carried into the storm and they get so far up into the air that they start to freeze. Well, the more time they spend in that cloud, the more ice they're able to accumulate on their surface and the larger they get. Well, they're only able to stay inside of that cloud if those updrafts are strong enough. So again, the stronger the storm, the stronger the updraft, and the larger the hailstones. And they will stay in the cloud until the hail weight becomes greater than the updraft strength, and then eventually the hailstone falls to the ground, potentially causing damage sometimes. And finally, this isn't a component with severe thunderstorms, but just all thunderstorms in general, lightning. This is actually what determines what a thunderstorm is, because a thunderstorm obviously can't be without thunder and lightning. So lightning, a factor with all kinds of storms that develop. And basically you just want to keep in mind that, first of all, if you can hear thunder, you're close enough to be hit by lightning. And the worst place to be during thunderstorms is anywhere out in an open field, in a high elevated place, and even near tall trees, especially ones that are isolated. You don't want to be near water or metal, of course. The safest place to be is inside of a building or even inside of your car. And a great way to determine how far away a storm is to you, if you can see a lightning strike, is to count the distance between that lightning and when you hear the thunder. So you see lightning strike, and every 5 seconds that goes by, that's a mile away. So if you hear thunder 10 seconds after you see lightning strike, that storm is 2 miles away. But again, even if you can't see the lightning, but you can hear the thunder, you are close enough to get struck by lightning. So that's the latest on thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms and the differences between both. Keep all of this in mind as we start to get into the spring and summer months.
What should you do if a tornado threatens where you are, your home, your business, your school? First of all, tornadoes in Houston don't discriminate by month. We can have them any time of the year. They're a little bit more favorable in spring and in late fall and winter. It's interesting. We get plenty of tornadoes here even in January. So really they can happen and have happened any time of year. When we see tornadic conditions incoming, so we know tomorrow we're going to have just the right setup that could cause tornadoes, we'll issue what's called a tornado watch. It means, hey, conditions are favorable, we might see a tornado, be ready to take action just in case one does form. Tornado warning means that one has either been spotted or is indicated on Doppler radar. That means it's time to take action to keep yourself safe and keep your family and those loved ones around you safe. There's another level. It's called a tornado emergency. This is when we know we've got a damaging, violent tornado on the ground moving through Houston and Southeast Texas neighborhoods. That's when a tornado emergency is issued, and it's just another heightened level that you need to be prepared to take cover from a violent tornado that is approaching. You want to have at least a couple of ways to get these watches and warnings. Cell phones are a great way. Also, you can sign up for notifications on KHOU.com. NOAA weather radio. Listen, this is old school over the air, but these weather radios are great in case cell towers are knocked down or in case electricity is knocked out and your batteries aren't charged. You can't get it from television, radio, and digital. Now, the last tornado outbreak we had, several people will tell me they were watching our live coverage as the tornadoes were ongoing in Harris County, and they were watching on television. That's a great and maybe the best way to get the live information as a tornado outbreak is happening. And of course, in Houston, Southeast Texas, we don't have tornado sirens, but they do have those in Tornado Alley up there in the Central Plains. How do tornadoes form? You get winds blowing at different directions with heights. It's called vertical wind shear. You'll get a southerly wind coming off the Gulf of Mexico, and then a wind coming out of the west at higher levels as a storm system is approaching. What that does is it causes a column of rotating air, a horizontal column of rotating air as those two wind directions spin the air. Thunderstorms and tornadic thunderstorms are made up of very violent updrafts, and what will happen is that horizontal rotation will get caught in a thunderstorm updraft and be tilted into the vertical. That's how a tornado circulation is born, and once that tornado circulation reaches the ground, you have the definition of a tornado. And it's not just the winds that can be up to 240, 250 miles an hour or stronger. It's the debris that it picks up, shingles, pieces of wood, tree branches, glass that it can hurl and throw and cause such great injury and damage to you and threaten life and property. So what do you do if a tornado is heading in your direction? Your home, get to the ground floor or a basement if you have it. I know not a lot of folks in Southeast Texas have basements, but on the ground floor, first floor of your home or business, and an interior room or an interior hallway where you're surrounded by as much frame of the house as possible, and you're away from the edges of the structure, away from the glass, the windows, and the doors. That flying glass can, of course, cause major injury. What about a high rise? If you live in an apartment complex, you live in one of the high rises across the Houston area, ideally you want to get to the ground floor. It's the same idea. Get to the ground floor interior room. If you can't get there fast enough, again, it's the same type of setup. Get to the interior of the building, an interior stairwell or an interior hallway away from the outside skin of the building. And this is no joke, no kidding. Blankets and pillows, take them with you. They can help protect you from flying debris. If you've got a bicycle helmet, if you've got a motorcycle helmet, put it on. Anything to help keep you safe from flying, damaging chunks of debris that these tornadoes can bring with them. So here we are. We've talked about how to get notifications. Sign up for them with KHOU.com. Get the app. Create a communication plan. Make sure your family knows what the plan is if the tornado is coming your way. And make sure you have a meeting place, a designated meeting place after the storm. People can get separated. Cell phone towers can be knocked down. You may not be able to communicate in our traditional ways. And the best thing you can do here in Southeast Texas, look, this is an incredibly active weather spot on planet Earth. Southeast Texas, next to the Gulf of Mexico, not far from the Rocky Mountains. Those two interact to bring us these severe weather outbreaks. Check the forecast regularly. Watch the weather. Watch it every day. So you know if tomorrow we could have conditions that could cause tornadic activity. We'll do our part. We'll make sure you have the information to stay weather smart so you can keep you and your family safe.
And we are teaming up with the National Weather Service to provide flood safety tips. Always get to higher ground and never cross water if you don't know how deep it is. 1 to 3 inches of rain can cause high water inside the city. Just 6 to 8 inches of water is enough to stall the average car. Then a foot of water is enough to get your car floating. And 2 feet of water is strong enough to wash away most vehicles. Another tip on flood safety, copy all important documents and seal them in a watertight container in case of any water damage to your home. Always remember the rule, turn around, don't drown. If you're on the road when flooding starts, get to safety. But if you're at home, just stay there.
Beach safety. We're getting to those warmer months and you might want to stay ahead of those storms as well as those beach hazards if you do find yourself along our coastal beaches. One of the main hazards is rip current risks. Usually when a channel of water is appearing over open water, you usually see an area with no waves. That indicates that that could possibly be a rip current. And if you do find yourself in a rip current, you want to swim parallel to the shoreline because you have a greater chance of getting out of that rip current and being able to swim back to open water. So in terms of rip current risk, if you are caught in one, do not fight the current because you do lose energy and you definitely could potentially drown. And that's what usually happens is people fighting the current and trying to swim back to shoreline. You want to swim parallel to the shore to escape that current. And if you can't escape, float or tread water. Eventually you could get out of that current. And if you need help, call or wave for assistance. And also we do have the Texas beach warning flags that do indicate any potential hazards that are along our coastal beaches. So if you see a green flag, that means that there's calm conditions. A yellow flag, you want to exercise caution if you are heading into water. And if you see a red flag, that means that there is certain conditions that are hazardous. Either the water is rough or there is strong winds, and that definitely you might want to not go beyond waist deep water. If you do see those hazardous conditions in any swimmers that are weak swimmers, you want to stay along the shoreline. And if you do see a purple flag, that means that there is hazardous marine life, either jellyfish or man-o-wars that usually can sting you. An orange flag meaning there is a certain environmental hazard, either water quality or air quality could be a problem when you see orange flags. So definitely different flags involving different hazards across our coastal beaches. Another thing is to note is that you want to stay safe with the sun. With the sun bearing down on us along our coastal areas, keep in mind that water and sand reflect rays of the sun, and UV rays are strongest between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You want to wear a hat, protective clothing, and of course sunscreen, either at SPF 15 or higher, and you want to check that UV index if you are planning to spend your day along our area beaches. And even though sometimes it might still be cloudy, we could still see a high UV index usually when the clouds are overcast. So also too to note is that our area is along the Gulf of Mexico, and with that in mind, just keep in mind that we do have the possibility for hurricanes as we head closer towards hurricane season. The peak of hurricane season for us here across the Atlantic Basin is on September 10th through October 1st. The first day of hurricane season begins on June 1st, so you want to plan ahead, pay attention to the weather forecast if you do have any potential trips to the beach, and just always don't forget that hurricane season begins on June 1st and lasts through November 30th. So definitely be safe this summer.